left side of the church is the Cabildo. Back in 1803, at the second floor of the Cabildos were the finalizing chapters of the Louisiana Purchase was signed and transferred under President Thomas Jefferson. Closed that deal on selling the territory to the United States for $15 million, roughly about 4 cents an acre, as one of the greatest land acquisitions to take place in the U.S. history. It now hosts Napoleon's debt mass along with documentation of the Louisiana Purchase at the History State Museum. Mississippi River runs all the way from Lake Itasca, Minnesota, to where it empties in southern Louisiana to the Gulf of Mexico. In mileage, the river range is about 2,350 miles long. The second oldest neighborhood in New Orleans is located on the west bank, which is called the historical Algiers neighborhood. Algiers came about 1 year after the French Quarter was established in 1719. Straight ahead of us in the center of the road, this is a statue of the founder of New Orleans. His name was Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne Sieur de Bienville. Bienville was the French governor of Louisiana, which was given a land grant to establish the city of New Orleans on May 7, 1718. To the left is the Madam John Legacy's house here. It was one of the first homes built after the fire in 1788, impacting and devastated the quarters. Now back to the fire. At the left, one street over is a street called Charter Street. Good Friday, 1788. Family living at the property known as the Bouquet family. They had candles burning in the front window. They left to celebrate Good Friday for the evening. The curtains were caught on fire by the candles. A tiny container fire, 85% of the French Quarter was lost, and those were the French buildings that were built out of wood from 1700. Spanish between 1762 to 1803. At that time with the fire in 1788, after they started to rebuild the French Quarter area, and that's why you have all of these brick structures that are still standing up here over 150 to 200 plus years of age throughout this area. Now guys, straight ahead of us, if you continue straight past Canal Street, you were going to the CBP. Have any of you guys been over that area of town? So that's why you have the Harris Casino and all of that Poitras Street. They have a restaurant known as Mother's. That's an amazing place to check out. But originally when the Americans came in after the Louisiana Purchase took place, they settled on that side of town, which was known as the American section side of town. Any of you know the difference between the Creole gumbo and the Cajun gumbo?
Oh, we learned that, but we forgot.
Tomatoes.
What?
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes, yeah. That's what was told to us.
Cajun and Creole, and butter, so 3 words, but let's focus on 2. Cajun and Creole. Now, you might have heard Cajun and Creole used before, but a brief definition on these words, starting with the word Cajun. The word Cajun comes from the word Acadian. Now, the Acadians originated from France, but settled in what is now known as Nova Scotia, back in the late 1600s. The patch of land inhabited at the time was called Acadie. Well, they went to war with the British, and unfortunately, it didn't work out in their favor. So after the loss, they were given 2 choices. Choice number 1, you can stay on the land and pledge allegiance to us, as the British. If not, you were forced to exile and forced away from that land. So the people that decided to take the latter and leave, they were forced away on boats from their home. So they scattered all about. 400 of them got together and migrated all the way down to America. When they made it to America, a bunch of them started stopping off at the colonies all the way down till they got to New Orleans. Now, the only reason they made it all the way down to New Orleans is because on those stops in the colonies, there were French people that were settling on this new land. It's a private land, and you can have your own land, nobody will bother you. And their main focus was trying to get as many people populated here in the city so the British would not come and attack. So the French was trying to get everybody to come here. So those 400 made their way all the way down here. And when they made it here, in about 1756, what they were greeted with was the French quarters, the original patch of dry land of New Orleans. What at that time was just a giant mountain of dirt surrounded by water. One side, Mississippi River, other side was a mucky, dirty swamp. Now, the problem with this in the Cajuns is that the Cajuns are farmers, and they're used to living around lush green areas where they can plant and grow their own crops. So they couldn't settle here in the city, so they traveled further inland into Louisiana. Now, the further inland you go into the state, it becomes that flat plain with a lot more countryside areas. But they settled in these territories to continue their way of living off the land, planting and growing tops. Now, when it comes to Cajun style cuisine is always associated with darkened, not burned. Now, the reason for the darkened association is because living in those backwoods, they have to figure out ways to preserve their proteins for days at a time. So they believed in heavy seasoning of all of their meats, curing their meats. But when you take this heavily seasoned meat and you cook it down, it will come out a lot darker than it normally would. So that's where that darker association comes from. And that's also where that heavy spice, that heat factor comes from, because true Cajun is heavy on the hot and spicy side. Now, I'm always going to say darkened and not burned, because over the years, it's been a little mix-up when it comes to the true definition of Cajun cuisine. So there is no such thing as Cajun muffins, Cajun biscuits, Cajun lasagna, Cajun toast. That is burnt food that people have been feeding you and then using us as scapegoats. But Cajun should be darkened and spiced. Back home, if you can't find a lot in your grocery stores, if you have a Spanish community, go to their grocery store. They're going to have it. It might be a big tub of it, but they're going to have it.
I go to my butcher.
Your butcher hat, yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it on your own fat. Oh, yeah. I'm going to start off by turning on our lard and how to operate these cooktops. They're a little bit high tech. Like I said, these are induction cooktops. These cooktops.
Give me a nice little pinch inside there.
Yeah. So by gradually shaking it in there and adding it and stirring while you do so, just to work on any lumps you can have inside your roux. The roux should be nice and smooth. And from there, when you get all the flour in there, just keep it a constant stir on. So the white roux is the basic roux. Anybody can make a white roux. Now the second one is the blonde roux. The blonde roux, only difference between a white roux and a blonde roux is oil versus butter. You use oil, it's considered a white roux. You use butter, it's considered a blonde roux. Now also with the blonde roux, you want to lightly toast the flour. Unlike the white roux, you don't want to cook it at all, but with the blonde roux, you want to lightly toast that flour. We're talking about 3 to 5 minutes max. That 3 to 5 minutes toasting that roux will get that flour flavor off it. That flour flavor that carries it. So the white roux and the blonde roux is the two that we learned from the French. Now when we added those two, we figured out that if you walk away from the blonde roux and then come back, it'll get darker. So it goes from blonde to peanut butter, as we call it, the peanut butter roux. Now the peanut butter roux is a peanut butter right there. Peanut butter. The peanut butter roux. Tell you about one more.
Thank you.
The peanut butter roux is used in a lot of different recipes. Yeah. The bell peppers and the celery. So 2 cups, 1 1. 1 cup, half half. It's always going to be half the amount of the onion for your trinity. And also when it comes to the trinity, of course, you're a little sturdy and add that garlic to it. You can add that garlic to yours too, man.
Okay.
Inside.
You don't put any oil on it. Drop it. But the oil will come out of the sauce.
Do it from scratch. I'm going to put a lot of work and effort into it. So that means going and getting the whole chicken. Not feather chicken. I want to get the way that they weigh fish is that it's going to be by weight. All right, you ready to flip now? It's actually a knife. That's the cool thing about it. No. Yeah. You ready, man? Look. There you go. Oh, beautiful. Give me another one. And just wait for a second. You're doing a swell job right now. Grand finale, bitch. Go for it. Oh, yeah. You get it. And when you rotate until that flame dies down. Just like so. Now, as far as the flambe portion, the flambe is the show. So, you know, if you order this in a restaurant, a lot of restaurants sell it, but if you have a chance to actually eat at right on Royal Street, a place called Brennan's. Brennan's invented the actual dish back in 1951. Great job.
What's your name?
Hillary O'Tulio.
Hillary?
Hillary.
Ira Lieberman, I want to thank you very much for your service. During World War II.
Everybody do what you want.
You kept this country free.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Over in the Pacific, the transport of supplies and troops is far more logistically complex, with bases scattered across thousands of miles of ocean. Many islands lack ports or even basic infrastructure. And on average, twice as much cargo is needed to move and maintain troops than in Europe.
Churchill convinces FDR to make a controversial decision. The United States will avoid Hitler's threats now, and instead join the existing French campaign in North Africa, where Germany is weakest.
Our freedom is at stake. First, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor without any warning, and now Hitler and Mussolini have declared war on the United States. These aggressors have overrun nations across Europe and Asia, and are now casting their eyes on new conquests. Together, we face a daunting challenge with a war on two fronts. Our enemies in Europe dominate the skies and have infested the seas with deadly submarines. Weapons and aircraft pour out of Axis factories at an astounding rate, dwarfing our output. And their troops vastly outnumber American forces. In Washington, President Roosevelt and his advisors are working around the clock to develop a strategy to stop these brutal dictators. Victory is far from guaranteed. If we are to have any hope of winning this war, we must create a mighty arsenal of democracy. Mobilizing factories to produce guns, tanks, ships, and planes. Using homegrown ingenuity to develop superior weapons. We will have to train an enormous military force and safely transport our troops to distant shores. We must secure Britain, creating a base from which to liberate Europe. Our brave forces must clear the sea, sweep the enemy from the air, and seize hostile beaches in order to take the battle to the aggressors. The fate of civilization depends upon America and her allies.
Finally, in May 1944, a major offensive undertaken by many Allied nations ends the stalemate. The forces trapped at Anzio break out. The Gustav Line collapses. And on June 4th, 1944, the Allies take Rome, the first Axis capital to fall.
Blinded by their optimism, the leadership fails to recognize the lethal traps that lie ahead. The Germans have constructed a 400-mile defensive line, thick with interlocking bunkers, pillboxes, minefields, and artillery. The Siegfried Line coils along the German border like dragon teeth, poised to shred approaching armies. As summer wanes, Eisenhower attempts to smash through the line at the German city of Aachen. The fighting is ferocious as the American First Army encounters a city armed to the teeth with mines and snipers. Gains come house by house, block by block, death by death. In the end, the Allies outlast the enemy, but barely. It is a prelude for the horror about to follow. The Allies seek to exploit a small, densely wooded gap in the Siegfried Line called Hürtgen Forest.
The forest was a hell of an eerie place to fight. You can't get protection. You can't see. Artillery slashes the trees like a scythe. Everything is tangled.
The battle drags on for 3 months. Supplies run thin as a bitter winter descends.
Without my overcoat, I was freezing. I saw a German soldier shot down in front of me. He was dead, so I used his remaining body heat to warm up my hands.
Hürtgen Forest is less a battle than a dark nightmare. The GIs fittingly call it the Death Factory.
The days were so terrible that I would pray for darkness. The nights were so bad, I would pray for daylight.
Although in the end the Allies are victorious, Hürtgen Forest offers no strategic advantage whatsoever. The generals have gravely miscalculated. Only the dead and wounded will be home in time for Christmas. Both sides are growing increasingly desperate. Meanwhile, Hitler is on the verge of launching a last-ditch major offensive, and the Allies have no idea it's coming. The war is about to get darker.
The Bulge was an exhausting operation, filled with grim fighting and a superhuman effort on the part of the American soldier.
For you, the war is over, partner.
The Battle of the Bulge was the largest engagement in the history of the U.S. Army. Over 600,000 American soldiers, nearly 90,000 casualties. But now, the road to Berlin is open.
(1945). Winter is finally passing. The Soviets are on the march from the east, while American and British forces advance from the west. There can be only one outcome to this war: Germany's unconditional surrender.
In March, American troops crossed the Rhine River at Remagen. Pressing deeper into Germany's heartland, they encountered a depleted and demoralized enemy.
At last, we had Jerry on the run everywhere, and it was just a matter of running him to death and destroying him, and getting this damn world.
Instead of surrendering, Hitler flings children and grandfathers into battle. The Führer would rather annihilate the very people and nation he professes to love than admit defeat. Most military and SS officers loyal to the Führer remain duty-bound to fight to the last man. But ordinary German soldiers, realizing the war is lost, surrender in large numbers. And Americans come as liberators rather than conquerors. After 6 years of war, Allied soldiers are certain they have seen the worst of Nazism, but nothing prepares them for what they are about to discover. They stumble upon one concentration camp, then another, and another. These war-weary soldiers, and soon the entire world, cannot fathom the massive scale of this heinous crime. The Germans have methodically murdered approximately 6 million Jews, as well as millions of others deemed enemies of the Reich, homosexuals, political prisoners, Roma, the disabled, and other ethnic and religious groups, and POWs. It is the core of the Nazis' bitter ideology of hatred. When Generals Eisenhower and Patton tour Ohrdruf concentration camp, they can't believe their eyes. The fearless Patton halts mid-tour, unable to witness any more. When a German soldier asks an American GI why he is fighting, the GI replies, "We are fighting to free you from this idea that you are a master race." To break German morale and support advancing Soviet troops, the 8th Air Force steps up bombing of German cities and civilian populations. On April 25th, 1945, American and Soviet troops converge near Torgau on the Elbe River. Everyone knows that the war's end is only days away. In the meantime, the Red Army has surrounded Berlin and launched a withering assault on the city, killing yet another 300,000 people. Through all the devastation, Adolf Hitler expresses no remorse. And rather than be taken prisoner, he commits suicide. Then, finally, on the morning of May 2nd,
at 10 a.m., there was complete silence. Could that be the end of it all? Ah, yes. There it is. The Germans are surrendering.
5 days later, German General Alfred Jodl meets with military leaders from the United States and United Kingdom and signs a document of unconditional surrender to all the Allied powers. The war in Europe is over. Allied soldiers, relieved, celebrate the end of the killing. The Nazis' dream of a 1,000-year Reich is finished. The streets of Berlin lie vacant, obliterated, littered with bodies. Cities throughout Germany lie in ruin. Dresden, Aachen, Cologne, Dusseldorf. Across Europe, entire neighborhoods, villages, and cities are damaged or demolished. London, Warsaw, Stalingrad, Rotterdam, St. centuries of human hope, knowledge, aspiration lie buried under rubble. Whole families, schools, synagogues, communities vanished with little trace. Death made so common, so everyday, the numbers so vast and inconceivable, they are rounded off in hundreds of thousands, even millions. For American soldiers, some will join the fight continuing in the Pacific. Others will remain to oversee post-war Germany. Together, these men and women will share a bond of pride, courage, of sacrifice, forged on the battlefields of Europe as they fought to free us from the darkest of tyrannies and restore a sense of hope to the world. December 7th, 1941. Japan launches a devastating surprise attack at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Fear grips the nation. Americans brace for news of other attacks. Within days, the United States is at war with Japan and its Axis partners, Germany and Italy. A daunting challenge now faces the American people. We must defeat 3 battle-hardened enemies on 2 fronts. The Axis war machines are fully mobilized, crushing nation after nation as they surge across the globe. At home, the United States stands unprepared for war. Our armed forces and war industries woefully meager. If we are to stand any chance of emerging victorious, the United States will have to build the most powerful arsenal the world has ever seen. Our scientists and engineers must develop advanced technologies. We must muster and train 15 million men and women. Against a dominant Japanese navy, American sailors will be required to secure shipping lanes to transport troops and equipment. We will throttle enemy supply lines with our submarines. Our pilots must take control of the skies before we can advance our campaigns on land and at sea, so that our troops can undertake perilous amphibious landings and root out the Japanese. The road to Tokyo will range across the great Pacific, a theater of war as vast, unpredictable, and dangerous as any in history. Can the U.S. defeat this powerful and ruthless enemy? How many years and lives will it take?
There are so many people buried in this crypt. I wonder if they're cremated.
We are at Tuja Restaurant. It's the second oldest restaurant in the French Quarter of Narlands. This is a Sazerac with the finest of bourbon. I'm gonna try this now, guys. Wow. Wow. It goes way down. Way down. Honey, you must try this. It's fantastic. We want to help you get a Steinway.
Yes. I just wanted. The problem is going to be getting upstairs. That's going to be the problem. That'll be my biggest problem.
Let that be.
That'll be a good problem to have. I'll get into an apartment. Steinway costs more than my house anyway, so. Yeah. All right, let's try this. What's a good one? Good one.
Surprise us with something.
I'm going to surprise you. Oh, you know what? Now that it's Carnival.
I'll put it in my video production. I will. What's your name?
Nick.
Nick?
Nick Stone.
Nick Stone. Nick Stone from the Big Easy. Let them all see where you're at, man.
Down in New Orleans where the blues was born, it takes a cool cat to blow a horn. On the Sile and Rampart Street, the combos play with the mambo beat. Mardi Gras, mambo, 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 Mardi Gras, mambo, 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 Mardi Gras, mambo, ho. Down in New Orleans, in Gertown, where the cats all meet, there's a Mardi Gras mambo with a beat. Join the chief and the Zulu gang, truck on down to where the mambo swing. Mardi Gras mambo, 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 Mardi Gras mambo, 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 Mardi Gras mambo, ho. Down in New Orleans. Thank you, my good man.
Okay, we're in competition now. See what she can do. See what she can do. What do you intend to do? The 5 ball, is that a 5? Okay, let me see. Get that ball in.
I'm being hustled.